This is the Jewish advocacy crossover the people have been waiting for.
This is not going to be solved over a weekend of brainstorming in the Hamptons.
What's something that American Jews don't understand about Israelis?
The Hadids, all of them, literally all of them have blocked me. We're never going to eradicate anti-Semitism, but I'm going to sure give it one heck of a fight.
Welcome, one and all, to today's episode of Being Jewish, which has been generously sponsored by my friends Jacob Fenton and Phil Castle. Jacob, Phil, and I were recently together in Poland at the March of the Living, which I spoke about on an earlier episode of the pod, and they would like me to dedicate today's episode to the memory of those who were robbed of their lives during the Shoah, as well as to honor those who managed to survive. Jacob, Phil, thank you so much. All right, today's guest, what a powerhouse. She's been an actress, a producer, an author, a speaker, and was also appointed as Israel's first special envoy for combating antisemitism and the delegitimization of Israel, which is a tall order just to say, let alone to do. Though she's lived in the U.S. for a quarter of a century, her family roots run deep through the very foundation of the modern state of Israel, offering her a unique perspective on global Jewry. Like Elphaba, she is a child of both worlds. She's a mom, the biggest name in the Jewish advocacy world, and one of my wife's most unwavering girl crushes. Weekly shout out to Courtney. Please give a hearty bruchim habaim to Miss Noa Tishby.
Hi.
Hi, Noa. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Finally, we've been trying to make this happen for
since
so
the beginning.
Long. Since the beginning, literally. Was I a first text?
You were definitely in the early batch, for sure.
Like, yes, I want to come on, but like, yes, let's try and find
this is the Jewish advocacy crossover the people have been waiting for. So I want to jump right into talking about that special envoy gig. What was the impetus behind that role? And what were the specific goals that you were meant to accomplish? And how did you attempt to accomplish those?
So first of all, the role, I held a position for less than a year because the government,
really?
The government changed, and there were a couple of steps that were taken that ended that position, which we can get into later. So bottom line is this was the first time that Israel had a special envoy to combat anti-Semitism. I was appointed by Foreign Minister Yair Lapid under the Lapid-Bennett government. I've known him for over 20 years. We've been friends for a very, very long time. And he called me up and he said, let's meet. And I said, we sat at the cafe, and he goes, you know how every country has a special envoy for combating anti-Semitism?
Every country?
I said, a lot of countries. The EU,
I know,
the
EU,
United
Canada,
States,
US, and now Australia.
There's not every country. Every country should have it, but a lot of major countries in the world. And I said, yeah. And he goes, Israel doesn't have one. And I was like, interesting. Like, it didn't even occur to me at the time. And I go, I would like you to be the first. And I was like, yes. Please, absolutely yes. Then I start laughing, and he goes, why are you laughing? And I said, well, it just occurred to me, Mr. Foreign Minister, that you are setting me up to fail.
Right.
Like, you're literally giving me a position in which I'm never going to be successful at ever. And he started laughing as well. And he goes, I expect you to end anti-Semitism within the next 3 months. Right. Please submit a report. And we started laughing about this. So first of all, it was an honor to serve as Israel's special envoy.
Sure.
I'm saying this because I had a few people in America that advised me not to take that position.
Why? I
guess because I'm Israeli American, their position was, which I understand, they had an opinion, was don't take that position because it's going to peg you as too much of an Israeli. You are a very highly appreciated author and spokesperson and activist and producer and whatever. It's going to peg you as an Israeli. My response to them was, do you understand that this is not a joke for me? I was like, this is not about perception. It's not about my brand, quote unquote. My family is there. This is about life or death for the Jewish people and the existence and safety and security of the state of Israel. Like, if you think I shouldn't take this position because it's going to hurt my brand, you're out of your mind. Thank you so much for that advice. I'm still going to take that position.
Yeah.
The position included coordinating with the Israeli government and various other governments around the world. We worked with the UN. I testified in front of Congress and started building this infrastructure to combat, to bring into awareness what now is clear to everybody else, but wasn't so much at the time, the importance of bring this fight to the international stage. And I think it's a very important position that is now held by Michal Kotler-Wunsch. She's a great woman as well. And there's no ending anti-Semitism.
Right.
That
been around for thousands of years, not going away anytime soon.
A lot of people ask me, how am I not discouraged? How am I positive in this fight? How am I still strong in this fight and still optimistic and have this kind of like let's go get them type of an attitude, is because the way I see it is that fighting anti-Semitism is not a goal to achieve, it's a context to live into. So we just have to wake up every morning knowing that we're going to make a little difference and keep going because we are a link in a chain, but it's never going to be resolved. It's been around for thousands of years. So if you think that you can end it, let's go out and fight anti-Semitism in order to end anti-Semitism. You're going to get burned out. We're never going to eradicate anti-Semitism. But I'm going to sure give it one heck of a fight. Yeah. I can tell you that.
Was it your agenda? Like, here's what I think we should do? Or was the government like, here's what we'd like you to do?
That government was highly collaborative and very attuned to the world at the time. And they appointed me because I already was in this world and doing this work for a very long time. So they were very attuned and listened to what I thought we need to do.
Were there deliverables? Like, did you guys be like, all right, in the next 6 months, we'd like to move this thing.
But again, it was only 10 months because then the government fell and the new government came in and they asked me if I wanted to stay in the position. And I said yes. It took me a minute. I had to think about this because obviously the new government was not exactly to my kind of taste, specifically not enough representation of women and stuff like that.
You're more liberal generally.
I'm more liberal generally, yeah, for sure. I'm very hawkish on defense.
Sure.
Extremely hawkish on defense. So I'm like a normie.
Yeah.
You know, I took a minute to think about it and I got back to them and I said, yes, absolutely. I want to stay in this position and serve this government because I believe that fighting anti-Semitism is more important than any political stance.
Absolutely.
Now or ever. And then the judicial overhaul started happening. And that was in January 23 that it started. And I took a few months and I didn't say anything. And then I had to state my opinion at the time, which was that going through with all the laws that were proposed, specifically one of them, which is allowing the government to overturn a Supreme Court decision by a simple majority of 61, would weaken Israel's democracy. And I had to speak up against it.
In what forum did you speak up?
The first thing I did was write an op-ed in Hebrew. I am a strong believer in you wash the dirty laundry in the home and you say it in Hebrew and you say it to Israelis or to the government or to whatever. So when I have criticism of the Israeli government, I usually pick up the phone and call somebody and tell them what I think needs to be done rather than do it publicly. So I wrote an op-ed in Ynet stating very clearly where I stand publicly. And I got a signal that it wasn't encouraged.
How quick was the
very
phone?
Quick. They're like, and I was like, I understand, but you know.
Did you think that was like going to be on the table? Like once you put this out, you're like,
totally. But that's okay. It was necessary at the time.
Did you give any tips to Michal when she took over the gig?
No, she's great. She's great.
Michal is going to be involved with a new Being Jewish project that we're going to announce shortly. So stay tuned for that. So you've been doing this advocacy work, as you said, for decades. What have you identified now, like Noa in 2025, as the areas of focus for you, for your advocacy? Like what lane are you choosing to be in? And how are you addressing the things you think need addressing?
I've been doing this for such a long time, mostly under the radar, mostly kind of preparing for the past few years, but it's been a very long time. And I'll tell you the biggest difference that I've noticed from when I started to now.
Yeah.
People are now aware.
That's good.
Whereas they weren't before. So the problems actually haven't changed. We've identified the same problems that were occurring, that we're seeing now 15 years ago.
Right.
We've been talking about, I say we because it's not just me, but there was a small group of us, activists and organization, a very small group that saw this iceberg that's about to hit the Jewish community and Israel and try to warn the larger kind of Jewish community and Israel.
When you say this iceberg, which part are you talking about?
Anti-Zionism being the new form of anti-Semitism, if I can just put one, just one of the issues that we're seeing. Because as an Israeli, right, I knew the dangers of radical Islam, the dangers of Sharia law, of jihadism. I understand what that culture in its extreme form is capable of doing to the world. to the Jews, to the world, to Israel, in order for the 12th Imam to show up in the Muslim world, which is a Shia, it's a Mahadism, it's called, in Shia Islam, which is Iran, essentially.
Okay.
Israel need to be eradicated. That's what needs to happen, right? So there's no beating around the bush of what they've been trying to do for the past 46 years, right? They have been arming militaries around Israel. They have been threatening Israel. They've been talking about this very clearly. They need this for not just expansionist political reasons, but for religious reasons. And when you're fighting against a military that is religious in essence, that is jihadi, there's no rationalizing with that agenda. So being an Israeli, even a liberal Israeli, I knew that this was coming. So we knew that. And then I saw what was happening in America in terms of this like twisting Israel to turn Israel to the big bad wolf of the world and manipulating and gaslighting and using language against us and using intersectionality and all that, all that's kind of like using colonialism against us and using apartheid against us. And I saw this, and the collision came on October 7th. And then we were joined by the wonderful, beautiful October 8th Jews around the world that were like, oh, okay, now we get it. At least now we're fighting the real fight.
Yeah.
At least now everybody's having the same conversation. Whereas before, I used to have conversations with people and be like, do you understand what's happening on a college campus is actually dangerous for Israel? And people, both here and in Israel, were completely brushing it off. I would go on TV in Israel and say, in Hebrew, do you understand that they're talking about Occupation 48, not Occupation 67? They're completely delegitimizing Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state from the beginning. Like it's not, and these are not conversations that are being had in radical Islamic countries in the region. These are conversations that are being held on Harvard campus. And people are like, no, it's fine. They'll get out of college, they'll get out of it. Everybody's a radical on college campus. And I'm like, this is organized.
Yeah.
A lot of people throughout the years would come up to me and have a variation of the following line, all right? Israel needs a PR team.
Yeah.
We just need to get a crisis management PR team and find a solution and find a thing and get a PR team and get this done with. And every time I'd be like, okay. And I just kept telling people, like, this is going to take a long time. This is not going to be solved over a weekend of brainstorming in the Hamptons. Like, it's just not happening. Like, this took a very long time of a lot of groundwork and a lot of money and a lot of thinking. And we need to be patient in this fight to turn this ship around. This is not going to be a quick fix.
So how are you trying to reach the rest of the non-Jewish community with this messaging?
My organization, 18, what we do, our mission statement is very simple, all right? It's fight anti-Semitism, defend Israel, and inspire Jewish pride. And inspire Jewish pride to me is one of the most important things that I've been doing in the past few years. Like, I'm not bothered by trying to convince those that we can't convince. And I have a lot of people that would come up to me and be like, oh, you got to sit down with Ilhan Omar and Bella Hadid. Why don't you reach out to Bella Hadid? I'm like, why would I reach out to Bella Hadid? Yeah. She's blocked me on Instagram like years ago. I'm blocked by the entire Hadid family. I feel like it's a badge of honor.
Yeah, you really made it.
I really made it when the Hadids, all of them, literally all of them have blocked me.
I wonder if that was in the family chat. Like, we
got
to block this chick.
You gotta block this woman, this bitch, this Zionist bitch. So there are the ones that you cannot turn, the ones that are completely brainwashed, the ones that are like, there's no talking to them.
Why waste your time?
Not interested at all. I'm talking to the moderates. I'm talking to the ones that are sitting there going like, all right, well, I don't love Bibi, but also I don't think that Israel should be eradicated. It's not the worst thing in the world. Yeah. Those are the ones that I'm talking to. And those are the ones that you have to talk to very slowly in various ways. So whether it's college campus tours that we do, or whether it's social media, or whether it's media or cultural events or whatever, it's a yes and approach. And I think it's true for me. It's true for you, for what you do. So we just need to keep going. This is not going to be fast.
We got generations here.
Yes.
Where have you seen like a real positive feedback from your work? Like, oh, that worked. I made an impact there.
First of all, I see it every day. I get it every day, whether it's walking down the street or on my social media or through whatever. Like, we get it every single day, and knowing that our work makes a difference. But I'll give you a couple of examples. So one of them is I went to speak in Atlanta a couple of, maybe a year ago or something, a couple of years ago.
Great Jewish community in Atlanta.
Yeah, great. So I go to Atlanta and this girl comes up to me and she said, I want to tell you a story. She's like, she was a student at Emory and she got into college and she decided to create an interfaith reading club. Because she wanted to reach out to other faiths.
Great.
And, that's what I always say to
Sweet.
people. I'm like, change is going to come IRL, not on social media.
Mhm.
You're not going to change a single person's mind while fighting with them on the comment section. You're just going to get an anxiety attack, and it's probably a troll or a bot from Iran. So she started an interfaith reading club, and she gave my first book as the first book to read. And she told me, this girl came up to me after 2 weeks, and she said, oh my God, I read this book. I did my research. I went online. I did my research. She's like, it completely changed my mind. I was totally lied to. And that girl was the head of SJP in Emory.
Whoa.
And she's out. She's
Wow.
like, that's it. I'm out. I was lied to.
That's amazing.
I'm getting goosebumps every time I tell this story. And I hope this girl is watching me because she came up to me like maybe a year later. She's like, remember that? I heard you talk about this. I was literally like, that's why I do what I do. I love speaking at high schools and colleges. It's like my favorite thing to do.
How come? Why do you love it so much?
Because it's the younger generation and they're what matters. Like we're great, but we're not what's important. They're the ones that are important. And they're why we do this work and strengthening them. Like when I have a girl comes up to me, this awesome girl that I met in Texas, Sadie, and she wants to be Miss Texas. Actually, you can still vote for her. Go to my social, you can vote for her.
Amazing.
And she wants to be the first Jewish Miss Texas and the second Jewish Miss America.
Let's go.
She's gorgeous and awesome and so sweet. And she was like, and I'm wearing the Star of David and I'm so inspired and you're so this, blah, blah, blah. And I to me, again, that's why that's worth everything.
That's amazing.
It's worth all the death threats in the world.
There you go. So let's talk a little bit about your book.
Yeah. Which one?
Israel. We're starting with Israel.
Okay.
So Israel, a simple guide to the most misunderstood country on earth. I have talked about it several times on this show. It's part of my being Jewish book set. Like if you're going to start, that's got to be one of them.
Yes, that's
super
the intention.
Digestible, balanced, really terrific stuff. What, if anything, would you say people responded to the most in there? Like what's the thing you hear about back the most? Like I had no idea about this thing.
I think one of the things that people are surprised by is that the fact that the Jews will return to Israel and that it's their land is mentioned in the Quran. So a lot of people are like, I had no idea. That is something. I think that a lot of people comment about the appendix at the end.
What's in the appendix at the end?
It's just the entire story of Israel in bullet points. And I was like, let me make it really easy for you. Boom, 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 boom. Just in case anybody asks. Boom, boom. And people are like, this is really useful to me. People love my grandmother.
Which
they
one?
Love
Saftafania.
And Fania. It's like Saftafania. And it's like so, I can't even believe that I've created this world in which people know my grandmother from the kibbutz. And they come up to me and they're like, oh my God, she sounds like such an amazing woman. And she is, and she was. And to be able to keep her memory alive like that and tell the story of my family like that in a way that hopefully Ari will read, my son will read one day and, be proud of. And
that's special.
Yeah, it's very special.
All right, so tell us, I didn't want to get into all of your family in the book because we could do an entire 90-minute interview just about your amazing roots with your family and the creation of Israel. But let's talk a little bit about Safta, who helped form the first kibbutz in Israel.
Yeah. Here's the thing that people don't understand. In the turn of the century, there was a group of radical, socialist, young, like teens and early 20s group of psychos, essentially.
Like real deal socialists, not like today.
No.
Fake
They were
socialists.
communists. The reason my grandmother moved to Israel because she wanted to be a communist and she couldn't be a communist in Russia because, Jewish. So she was like, oh, where can I be a communist and work the land and also be Jewish? In the land of Israel. And that's why they came there. They came before World War II. They came because of anti-Semitism in Europe. And they built a country. Imagine, it was like 19 whatever when they started showing up there. And they're wearing dresses and their hair up in Europe. And these girls are taking off their dresses, putting khaki shorts, and like it's starting to work the land and demanding equal rights, which were nowhere else to be found, and helping build the country. My grandmother built roads and planted tomatoes. Like they actually did that. And they all lived in kibbutzim. Not all of them. Some of them lives in cities and various other places. My other side of the family, my dad's side of the family was in Jerusalem since 1922. My mom's side of the family lived in basically a commune, a socialist commune. Like it wasn't today like the progressives that are pretending to be, but they asked for their kombucha.
Right.
You know, those were the real deal.
Sharing everything.
A kibbutz is, it's a village essentially, but it's all communal. You don't own anything. So everybody gets paid the same. So decide you get paid 10 shekels a day, whatever. I'm just making this up. Yeah. But everybody does. Doesn't matter if you run the thing, if you milk a cow, right? Everybody gets paid the same way. The kids are raised in a kid's room together. You basically give them to a communal nanny. You see them once a night in the evening for like an hour and a half. And then they go back to sleep there, whatever. I have a lot of issues with that.
Yeah, that part's
no, that part didn't survive, didn't age well. But at the time, it worked for
they were pioneering,
trying they were pioneering. You know? They were real pioneers, and the women were a pivotal part of building that country. My grandmother, when I was doing research for my book, I read my grandmother's diaries, and I was blown away. First of all, we think we invented polyamory. No.
When I said they shared everything, I meant they shared everything.
They shared everything. Yeah. They were,
you got all the details in the diary?
There when she suddenly kind of throws there that her and her husband, whom they've been together their entire life, right? We just decided to stop with the affairs. And she didn't say he stopped with it, like we. So I call my mom and I'm like, what on earth was that? And she's like, oh yeah, that's just how it was at the time. Like it was actual free love, free spirit, real socialism, real communism, real sharing of everything, as you say. Stuff like that I'm reading in her diary. The other thing that she suddenly, again, she kind of like throws it out there and I'm just like pause and I'm just blown away. She was talking about, she called it Chavat Alamot, the ladies' farm, which was like a group of girls. This is 1936. A group of girls come together with a guide named Zabina. For some reason, I remember that name. And one cow. And they give them a tent. And they're sending him out to like farm somewhere in the middle of nowhere. And she's describing how they were farming the land during the day and like singing and dancing during the night and what they were eating. And one night there was rain and all their tents were blown away, but they were laughing. And I'm like, oh my God. This is insanity. So it's a very inspirational thing to read, having known her, you know, and really understand how incredible that generation was and how powerful that generation was and what it is that they did, which is create a country again after 2,000 years. It was such a radical idea. Yeah. And to have it be successful is something that we should never forget because we grew up to Israel being a given. Right. But in 1936, if you were to say a Jewish state is going to be recreated in the land of Israel, people would have thought you're out of your mind. Yeah. And they were.
Something else you're not really shy to talk about in the book is Judea and Samaria and your view of what's going on there. Can you articulate for us what you feel is happening there and what should be happening there?
I can't articulate that because it's TBD. There is what we would love to see happen, and then there is what can happen, right? The bottom line is this. Israel needs to be Jewish, democratic, and strong. That's it. And the reason that Judea and Samaria or the West Bank or however you want to call it, the reason that that region, that ancient Jewish region is not Palestine, right, which is essentially was supposed to be Palestine, shouldn't be a question to be asked of Israel. It should be a question that should be asked of Palestinian people. There's been a constant refusal for the Palestinian people to actually create their own state. Right now, what they're committed to is the destruction of the state of Israel, and that is just unacceptable. So I can't tell you what needs to be done with Judea and Samaria, TBD.
Because you are positioned sort of, born and raised in Israel so deeply, entrenched there and have now been in America for so long. You can sort of speak to all these different cultures.
And I love America. Can we talk about that?
Love it.
I'm so patriotic. I'm like,
I feel like,
yeah,
most people who move here are.
Yes, because we understand how lucky we are to be here.
Mhm.
So lucky to be here. So when I see these like radical demonstrations against America, and when I see all these people that are calling Israel an apartheid state and then America is an apartheid state, and you're like, shut up.
Yeah.
Just zip it. Anyway.
What surprised you the most about Jewish life outside of Israel when you got here?
So many things.
It's super different.
It's so
I don't think people really
different.
understand how different being an Israeli Jew
Oh
and
my
being
God, it's
a diaspora
so
Jew are.
different.
Yeah.
First of all, just for background, for people who don't know my background,
Mhm.
I was raised very secular. So very Zionist, like super Zionist, but also like super secular. My dad is a complete atheist. My mom is agnostic, whatever. I've never been to a synagogue before moving to America.
Did you do any holidays,
We
traditions?
did holidays because, again, that's an identity thing. First of all, as all of us know, and you can be an atheist and still be Jewish.
100%.
This is right. You're saying this, but this is a funny conversation that I had with Emmanuel Acho when we wrote my second book.
Right.
When we wrote the
Which we
second
will
book
also
together.
discuss.
Yeah. So Emmanuel, he's incredible. We wrote this book together called Uncomfortable Conversations with a Jew, and we had all these uncomfortable conversations. And when I said you can be an atheist and be Jewish, he goes, whoa, wait a minute. What? So this is something that is very confusing for Christians in America and for some American Jews. So first of all, being secular in Israel, meaning, again, my family, we grew up with like no religion. We never did like Shabbat dinner in terms of like candles and stuff like that, nothing. But we did celebrate the holidays like Passover and Rosh Hashanah. And you do the big, and you do like the cheese on Shavuot, and you celebrate in school and, whatever. So you
Which is so funny because like in America, if you would say you were secular, you wouldn't even know what Shavuot was, let alone eat cheese on it.
Right. I think that's changing, though. I think that's changing.
Okay.
I think that's changing because a lot of people in America are starting to understand that you can still celebrate all of this as an identity and a cultural thing rather than like a belief system.
Right.
Because the thing about Judaism, as we know, is that it's not about what you believe in. You don't need to believe anything. It's about actions.
Right.
What kind of a life are you living? Who are you? What are you to your community? What's your accountability system? And the traditions and cultures that we have in this crazy group of people that we are. So I grew up very, very secular. And I was not connected to my Jewish identity that much. Like if you'd asked me who I was as a young adult, I would have told you I'm a woman, I'm an actress, I'm a producer, I'm a writer, I'm a this, I'm a that, I'm a blah, blah, blah. I would have said a million things. I'm an Israeli, I would have said that. But Jewish was like, meh, sure. Right. But then I moved here and a lot of things changed for me. I was here maybe, 3, 4, 5 months or something like that. And I am at my boyfriend's house, who's like non-Jewish and whatever, and the phone rings, and my family is on the line, and they're all like, "Happy holidays!" And I'm like, "Great, happy holiday!" I'm like, "What holiday is it?" And they go, "It's Rosh Hashanah." And I was just like, I stopped, like my heart dropped because. The thing is, it's not that I forgot that it was Rosh Hashanah. I completely didn't even know that it's coming. And I'm like sitting there, I hang up the phone. I'm sitting at my boyfriend's house. He's Australian, Church of England, whatever. And I'm looking in the Hollywood Hills. And I come up to him and I'm like, oh, so, it's a Jewish holiday today. And he's like, great. And I'm like, can we do something tonight? He's like, great. What do you want to do? I'm like, can we do a dinner or something? He's like, sure. Cut to, we're at Katsuya. On Ventura, which is a sushi place in LA, right?
They got honey at Katsuya. Miso
it's
honey.
Me and my Church of England boyfriend, Australian boyfriend, and my Church of England Australian girlfriend. And the three of us are sitting at Katsuya and they go, okay, so they're very positive. Like they're lovely, right? They're trying to help.
Right.
And they're like, great, what are we celebrating? And I'm like, the Jewish New Year's. And they're like, great, what does that mean? And I go, I don't know. And they're like, okay, great. Well, happy Rosh Hashanah.
Right.
I'm like, great. And I'm like downing sake. And I was devastated. And at that moment, I'm like, I'm never going to let this happen again. Because that sent me on a really interesting quest.
Sure.
Which is like, if I am Israeli and Jewish, but I'm not living in Israel, what does that mean? to be Jewish.
Yep.
That was, I think, the catalyst that sent me into the journey that I'm on today.
What I've observed is in Israel, people, I mean, they take the Jewish part for granted
Completely for
because it's
granted.
all, you're just
Completely.
immersed in it. You never have to think about it.
Yes. And then
you know
I
it's
run
Rosh
into
Hashanah
this.
because everyone tells you it's Rosh
Yes,
Hashanah.
exactly. And then I run in this rabbi and he goes, "Oh, I read your book." I'm like, "Great." He's like, "I loved it." I go, "Thank you so much." He's like, "That Rosh Hashanah story." I go, "Yeah, yeah." And he goes, "You know why God invented America?" I'm like, "Why?" He said, "So Israelis will remember that they're Jewish." I'm like, "Yes."
Yeah.
Exactly.
Once you're here, when you're in the minority, you have to be super intentional or you got nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to make it for
yourself. And once you're intentional, you find out that it's the most extraordinary thing in the world.
Yeah.
And then I tell people, I'm like, "Why do you light Shabbat candles? Why not? We've been doing this for thousands of years. It's not going to end with me, okay? If that's the least of the answers, just do it because of that.
Yeah.
Just that.
Love that.
Don't even worry about anything else."
So we've talked about just now, like sort of something Israelis might not understand about American Jews in the way that they have to be intentional. But now I want to, what's the reverse? What's something that American Jews don't understand about Israelis?
There is an essence in Israel that you guys don't know what we're dealing with, and F off.
Right.
Like, we're the ones that have to deal with the worrying and the fighting and the this and Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran and we don't right now. There's no bandwidth.
The grown-ups are talking.
Yes, like we're actually dealing with what we need to deal with, and like F you with your opinions about us and whatever. And that vibe is something that I think Americans don't understand. They also think that whatever it is that they say about like Bibi matters or about like Israeli politics matters. Nobody cares in Israel.
There are certain American institutions that must be able to pull some levers in Israel.
But levers are different than saying publicly what you think or what you feel, or like some celebrity saying like what I think is blah blah blah. It doesn't matter.
No,
for
they're
Israelis,
not listening.
They kind of like roll their eyes and be like, "You try being the bomb shelter, and then we'll talk."
Right. So we've talked about Israelis. We've talked about American Jews. What about Israeli Americans? That's its own sort of unique community too. In LA, we have the biggest Israeli community outside of Israel, of which you're a part. Yeah. How would you categorize that community?
I think the one thing that you can say about Israelis living anywhere else in the world is that you can take them out of Israel, but you can never take Israel out of them.
That's for sure.
Whether it's with the accent sometimes, or with the obsession for Bamba, or with the news. Like, we're all completely obsessed with the news, and that is true for every Israeli living everywhere. When you have children, the concept of living in a big country and the thought of not seeing them every single week when you grow up is a terrible thought. When I moved here and my friends were like, "Oh yeah, we're seeing our parents once a year on like Thanksgiving or whatever, Hanukkah," I was like, "What?" Like, when you live in Israel, if you don't go home for Shabbat every Friday,
I like that.
I love that.
We're already planting the seed in my son. I'm like, UCLA is like a great school.
Of course. You know what I said to Ari? I'm like, "Oh, when you go to college, I'm obviously going to move to whatever city." And I'm like, "I'll just be cooking for your friends and just hang out. You guys will do your thing. Like, I'll see everything."
Just come sleep over.
"Obviously." And I'm like, "Yes."
In the 90s, before you come here, you come to America hot off being a household name in Israel. You start on Ramat Aviv Gimel, which is sort of like, I don't know, Melrose Place for Tel Aviv. Yeah. That's a big deal to be that huge. I mean, on a huge show, a huge star of that show, and go, "Yeah, I'm going to leave and go to this other country where no one's ever heard of me." What's that decision? It's
completely insane. It's a psychotic decision. I don't know how I did that at the time.
Do you regret it? Well, you don't regret it because you love being
Oh my
in
God.
America.
Not only am I not, oh my God. Okay, so first of all, looking back at it now and seeing like an early 20s girl who really had everything. Like, I was on the highest rated primetime drama. I had the #1 album in the country. I was on doing the national theater production, Abima, national theater production of West Side Story, playing Anita.
And you're like, "Thanks, I'm going to leave."
Yes.
What is that about?
Yeah, it's crazy. And to think about it today, for many years there, because then I moved to America and then I had like incredible successes, but also a series of epic failures, like one after the other after the other.
It's brutal here.
Brutal. And I didn't know why I wanted to stay here. Like, I had no reason to stay here. There were moments in my time in LA before finding my actual voice and what I actually needed to do in life, which is what I do now.
Mm-hmm.
People around me, like my family and my friends, are like, go back. You have all these offers there. Like, go back. And I'm like, no, I need to stay here. I need to be here. And I didn't know why.
You just felt it.
I
Something
just
inside
felt
was
that
like,
I
this
needed
is
to
right.
be here. I always wanted to be in America. Even before I came here for the first time, I knew that I'm going to be here. I knew that this is where I need to say what I need to say and do what I need to do. The interesting part was that I thought I needed to become famous in order to be heard and start
Right.
talking about what mattered to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then it ended up being the other way around.
I
That all I
relate to
needed
that
to do
journey very much.
was start speaking, and people listened. And then it just became very clear when my first book was coming out, when I started writing my first book in 2019, when I got the first book deal with Simon & Schuster, I had an aha moment in which I'm sitting there and I go, oh, this is what I've trained for.
Mm.
This is what's going to be from now on. And I knew it. And back in 2019, I kind of understood that it's all coming, like the vector, like it's falling into its track, and
Yeah.
it made sense.
In between you leaving your mega stardom and becoming and writing a book, you have a lot of success as a producer,
Yeah.
especially with Bed Tipul, which is the Hebrew version of what became In Treatment.
Mm-hmm.
You sort of opened up that Israel to America pipeline.
Yeah.
Now there have been many shows.
Yeah. So,
and that was, a hugely successful show, many
Yeah.
seasons, many awards.
Yeah. We're nominated for 14 Emmys and Golden Globes and won a Peabody Award. And it
Yeah,
created a
huge.
market where a market didn't exist, which is the market of Israeli television formats in the US, which
Mhm.
all these other formats came after. So it never happened before. So part of the entertainment industry to me was always about telling stories. So I have always been an actor and a producer and a writer and behind the scenes and in front of the camera and behind the camera. But then moving to America, and people were like, I was like, I want to produce. And they're like, you're so adorable. Shut up, basically. Sit down, be pretty, and shut up. And just wait for your number to come up as an actress. And then maybe we'll let you produce. And I'm like, I don't think so.
Yeah.
So I kept looking for content to produce. I kept kind of saying, all right, while I'm taking acting classes and auditioning and suffering through this, I want to tell other stories. I want to find something to tell, like a story to tell. And I heard about In Treatment. And the first time I heard about it, I was just like, oh my God, this is the most brilliant idea in the world. How did I think about it? So In Treatment is basically two people sitting right in front of you, like just like this. It's a therapist and a patient, and they're having a conversation. And I'm like, I went to therapy. Why didn't I not think about this? This is brilliant. I go to Israel. And everybody's talking about the show. Everybody's like, oh my God, the first season just ended in Israel. And I'm sitting with my manager. I'm going to a meeting. And she also turns to me. She's like, oh my God, did you see Bed Tipul? It's like brilliant. And I had, again, an aha moment. I was like, oh my God, that's the show. That's the format. And I just came off shooting a television show for NBC called Coupling, which was a British adaptation to an American show, right? So I'm like, this is a format. I can take In Treatment and adapt it, just like they did with other shows. Like, they've never done this in Israel. We can take the show and adopt it. And I turned to her and I was like, do you know the creator? And she said, yeah. And I go, do you have his number? And she goes, yeah. I'm like, call him right now. Call. Now, remember, I haven't watched an episode.
Wow.
I haven't watched a frame. But I'm like, the combination of the brilliant concept with how everybody is saying this is the greatest thing since sliced bread, it's brilliant. So I'm like, call him. And she calls and she's like, hi. And I go, and I'm like, she's like, Noa Tishby wants to talk to you. So I take the phone and I go, what are you doing tomorrow? And he goes, I don't know, I'm like, we need to meet, and it's not about what you think it is. And I go, okay, because I'm thinking he might think that I want to roll.
Act in
I'll be a
something,
part.
right.
I'm like, no, it's not what you think it is. It's not that. And he goes, okay. And I turned to my manager. I'm like, can you get me the show? I need to watch the show. I need to watch it. So I watched the show that night. And I'm like, obviously, it's brilliant and it's amazing. And I show up for coffee that morning. And I go, what's happening with your show? And I'm like, oh, well, we're doing the second season. I'm like, no, I'm going to sell your show to HBO. And he looks at me as if I'm out of my mind. Because at the time, there were no television formats from Israel that were sold in the US at all. There wasn't even a clause in the contract of the television show in Israel that was addressing international format sales rights.
Right.
But I just knew that this is the first show from Israel that can be adapted to an American format, needs to be adapted, has to be adapted, and will be adapted. And I did it. Started making phone calls, got Stephen Levinson and Mark Wahlberg on board as co-producers, and we went ahead and sold it to HBO and basically made history with that show. And since then, obviously, like Israel is one of the countries that sells the most amount of television formats to the US. Like Euphoria is an Israeli format that people don't actually know. I mean, obviously Homeland, like there were so many shows. And
do you feel like that's still the case in 2025 today? Or it's like,
well, it depends. I think that first of all, a good story is a good story is a good story. And this is just a moment in time. And remember, Euphoria is not sold to the public as an Israeli show.
Of course, I'm sure most people have no idea.
No idea, as they shouldn't. It's fine. It's just, so in terms of the executives in networks, absolutely. It'll still be the same. There's going to be a lot of work that will need to be done with Hollywood in terms of telling the story of Israel and telling the story of the Jewish people once the war ends.
Say more about that.
In terms of where the state of Israel is and the Jewish people are at the moment, is we are in triage. We are in the emergency room, meaning there is a war with Iran that's happening. There's a war in Gaza that's happening. There are 53 hostages that are still held in captivity and need to come back home. There's still threats within Israel, and there's still anti-Semitism in America, and there are threats here at home. We're very much in triage.
Yeah.
Once everything kind of calms down, there's going to be room to retell the story of what it means to be Jewish in America and the story of Israel. Because the Jewish community, to a certain extent, even though we did create Hollywood, like invented Hollywood, there's an amazing book called An Empire of Their Own, which I recommend everybody reads, which tells the story of how the Jews invented Hollywood. So the Jewish community escaping persecution in Eastern Europe came here also because they weren't accepted in the East Coast, and over here was basically orange groves and nothing.
Right.
And we're like, all right, there's this vaudevillian kind of concept of taking a bunch of people, like invented the concept of taking a bunch of people in a room, putting chairs, and then using this like motion picture machine to screen movies. Like
that's something we've actually spoken about on the show, is how Jews invented Hollywood. And then, as the years have gone on, we've sort of
kept ourselves
whitewashed out of it a little bit.
We did this. So the Jews invented Hollywood and started to create the story of America, literally created Americana, literally created the American dream, the American, like the movie star, and we left ourselves away from the table. We have not been telling our own stories enough, and this needs to change. So once the war ends, I'm urging every single one of the members of the Jewish Hollywood community to actually take a hard look and be like, all right, what's a cool Jewish/Israeli story that I can tell? I think it's going to be a crucial part of recovery and recreating and reimagining what it means to be Jewish.
Don't you think that the people who would be telling those stories are already trying to tell those stories, and the ones who aren't are never going to?
Listen, because I've been doing this work for a very long time, I've seen a lot of Hollywood actors shun Israel and being Jewish for many, many, many years. And actually, after October 7th, many of them took ownership. And I think it's a beautiful thing. So we might not see everybody that we want to see being vocal, but the ones that are vocal are incredible. We kind of got used to the fact that like Michael Rappaport and Deborah Messing and Selma Blair and this and that, like, and Gal and like all these people are out there being visible, being powerful, being unapologetic. Brett Gelman, like there's so many. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting.
Wow, there's not that many.
Well, it's more than we used to.
Okay.
It's more than there used to be.
And speaking of, celebrities speaking out, for Hanukkah this past year, each of the 8 nights, you lit candles with a different celeb, including a couple that we hadn't heard from, like Mila Kunis and Gwyneth Paltrow. How did that come about?
Hashem was very active in that. No, so first of all, I want to shout out to Gwyneth on this because she was the first yes, and then Gal was the second yes. And once I had Gal and Gwyneth as a yes, it was much easier to get people to agree to do this. So we basically did, every night I lit candles with another Jewish or an ally.
Right.
Person that didn't really speak about their Judaism or whatever. And the intention was Jewish identity, Jewish pride, celebratory, non-controversial, nothing about Israel,
about being Jewish,
just about having fun and kind of like fun and cheeky.
But a lot of people are afraid to even go into those waters because they get They get shit even for lighting a Hanukkah candle.
We got a lot of, it was mostly positive
Yeah.
response. And the thing about Hanukkah is that Hanukkah is, the mandate in Hanukkah is that you are public and that you put your menorah in the window, and that
Right.
it's almost like it's a mitzvah to be public about this.
Mhm.
That's why there are menorahs on the streets and all of that.
Yeah.
And this Hanukkah project was probably the most visible candle lighting in the history of the Jewish people, because presented to 161 million people around the
Wow.
world. So I couldn't have been more proud of, first of all, the people that participated.
Did you already have a
which-
relationship with Gwyneth?
Yes.
Okay.
A very, not a deep relationship, but I had a relationship with her. And
she was your first call?
she was the first call, and she was a yes within 30 seconds.
That's amazing.
Amazing.
Because
I
like
was
she was like singing the
floored.
prayers and stuff. I mean, it was
I'm
amazing.
getting goosebumps. She was singing the prayers. She was talking about her Jewish family. She was talking about her Jewish upbringing. She identifies as very much as Jewish, which is extraordinary. And she's just the most gracious and fun and funny and sweetest and gorgeous human being. And she's amazing.
When you get with somebody like Gwyneth Paltrow, who is clearly so connected and has such a big platform and is an entrepreneur and in all these different worlds, are you like, okay, now what are you going to do next? Like, how do we carry this onto something more than the Hanukkah video? You're like, I'm going to take the win. She spoke about being Jewish. I think that's great.
I think that everybody and anybody that needs my help knows to reach out to me. I do a lot of these coaching calls behind the scenes and help people on what to ask, what to answer, how to do it. And I am not trying to push anybody to do something that they're not comfortable with.
So your second book, which you mentioned earlier, Uncomfortable Conversations with a Jew, which you co-wrote with Emmanuel Acho.
Another extraordinary ally.
Yes, an amazing ally.
Yeah.
Shout out to Emmanuel.
Shout out to Emmanuel.
Yeah. Something you said in that book, you say one of the biggest misconceptions about Jewish people is that we are a race. It's important to establish that there's no such thing as a Jewish race because the idea that it is a race has been foundational to anti-Semitism for decades.
Mhm.
What I have found more recently, at least, is that, and yes, I agree, of course, Jews, we sort of precede and exceed the idea of race. But to me, the problem is that everyone thinks Jews are a race and that the race is white people.
Yeah.
And that to whether you use the word race or tribe or whatever, to distinguish that we are our own thing.
It's an ethno-religion.
Ethno-religion, whatever you want to call it.
We're an ethnic group.
An ethnic group. So we are an ethnicity.
Yeah.
So we're on the same page on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the majority of American Jews are white passing, but that's not true for the majority of Jews around the world. But for Americans, specifically progressives on campus, when they think of a Jew, they think of Seinfeld.
Right.
And that's not what all Jews look like or what all Jews are.
Right.
So this is why I loved writing the second book, because a lot of the times I don't write this for the outside of the community. I write this for us. So it is Uncomfortable Conversations with a Jew, which is the questions that non-Jews want to ask, but it's also the questions that Jews need to know how to answer. So we need to know how to answer to what is Judaism. Are you a race? Are you a religion? What are you? So all these questions were answered in the second book.
All right. So let's talk a little about what's going on right now with Iran. How are you feeling? Just, how are you doing?
Very stressed.
Yeah.
Very stressed.
How's your family?
My family is okay, thank God. Everybody is okay. Everybody is very stressed. This is not a joke. We, when we realized what was happening, it was a shock, but it had to happen. The Islamic Republic of Iran has been threatening Israel for decades, has been prompting up, financing, building, arming, training armies around Israel for decades, have been responsible for terror around the world for decades against Israel, the U.S., U.S. allies, Saudi Arabia, whatever, for decades.
Their entire personality.
Their entire reason of being is to import an Islamist revolution all around the Muslim world and eventually the world, the entire world. They are an evil regime that at the very least should not have a nuclear power plant and or a ballistic missile program. Like at the very least, I'm not even talking about, the regime should probably change for the better of the people of Iran that are being oppressed and held hostage by their own regime. But that is not for Israel to decide. But Israel had to do it. There is, no matter how progressive you are in Israel, no matter how anti-Bibi you are in Israel, everybody is very supportive of taking this action, and they are taking the very heavy price, but they understand that it needed to happen.
That's an amazing thing about Israelis, like that pragmatism.
Yes, and
Like,
the
we know this needs to
resolve,
get
and
done. We know
yeah.
they're gonna kill some of us. We're gonna get
Yep.
bombed, but like we get it and we
Yeah,
support it.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's
So
rare.
as soon as this war started, across the board, by everybody that I was talking to, everybody was like, "It's about time.
Yeah,
Let's do it." And remember, they're almost after 2 years of fighting. They're exhausted,
right.
completely exhausted. But it's very clear that this needed to happen, and we're seeing the missiles that are getting through the Iron Dome and all the Israeli air defense, and the ones that are hitting hard, and they have thousands of them.
The other war that's still ongoing is obviously Israel-Gaza war. What outcome would you like to see? Let's say the day after.
Well,
What would
first
you
of
like to see?
all the hostages need to
Of
return.
course.
There is just no more time to waste on that.
There hasn't been.
I would like to see the Sunni moderate Gulf state coming in and helping control Gaza. Because again, sadly, what had occurred on October 7th is that sadly for the Palestinians, right, is that the entire normal world understood very clearly that the Palestinians are just not ready to govern themselves. Because when they're given a land, as they were given, both with Judea and Samaria, some parts of it, and with Gaza Strip, when they were given that land, they came up with October 7th. And that just can't happen again. So this needs to be a joint effort of countries in the region. It needs to be a regional allyship that actually takes care of Gaza, hopefully for the betterment of the Palestinian people living there.
On a permanent basis or a let's wait and see basis?
On a let's wait and see basis. Yeah. Listen, I'm all for them having self-governance and self-determination. They just proved this to us that they can't.
Right.
They're not ready.
What's next for you? Like, what are you working on right now?
I'm not going to tell you.
No? It's all too secret?
There are a lot of
Can you tell us anything?
I mean, there are a couple of things. So first of all, again, I have my organization, 18. We have a lot of things in the pipeline. We're going to do another college campus tour in October, which is the Voices of October 7th college campus tour, which we did a couple of months ago, which was extraordinary. I'm taking survivors of hostage survivor and October 7th survivor and bringing them to kids on college.
Amazing.
Because when they come to the U.S., usually these survivors go to fundraising events, so they talk to the adults in the room. And I wanted to make sure that they make it to the kids that actually need to meet them.
Yeah.
And it was so successful and so impactful when we did it a few months ago. So we're going to do another one again.
Great. We're
constantly working on content. We're working on a bunch of YouTube stuff. And, so there's a lot in the pipeline.
Okay. So I often like to end the show with a little lightning round, just some quick, mostly lighter questions. Yeah. What is an Israeli show that Americans should be watching?
I loved a show called Rehearsals, Chazarot.
Not The Rehearsal with Nathan Fielder.
Not The Rehearsal. No, it's called Chazarot. And they never made it to America, as far as I know. It's just so great. So look it up. It was Cannes 11. So great.
Favorite Israeli show ever?
It's hard to answer.
Sure.
But I'm going to say that Eretz Nehederet never fails. So Eretz Nehederet is the sketch comedy show that you've seen a lot of their content
sort
online.
Of like the Israeli SNL.
It's so much better than SNL, and it just never fails. So every time I'll watch it, and I'm like, oh my God, they did it again. So and I've been doing it for like 20 years. So extraordinary.
I really liked their Red Cross Uber sketch. Was very funny. You've made thousands of videos on social media. Can you think of any that have been like among the most impactful?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's some of like the greatest?
Which river, which sea? That was a video that we filmed at the Sundance Film Festival. There was a demonstration. I was speaking at Sundance, and there was a demonstration outside, anti-Israel, pro-Hamas, whatever. And I was like, let's go. And once this hit, it's tens and millions of views.
Who are some of your favorite follows on social media?
I love what Michael Rappaport does because I love how blunt and in your face he is. It's absolutely adorable. I really like A Wider Frame, so I'll follow A Wider Frame. I think they are very balanced. I love Han Mazig is great. There are, oh my God, I'm now forgetting, and people are going to be so
That's a good three. That's a good number. You talk about in your book, Israel, like needing to educate oneself with facts and history. What are some of your favorite resources that you could recommend for getting facts and history?
All the, the Benny Maurice and the history and My Promised Land and the things. Like I read all these books that you need to read. And because I read Hebrew, it's kind of like a cheat sheet because I read Israeli media and books in Hebrew. So I'll read anywhere from like Haaretz and Ynet and, all of that. So I don't think I have any particular. So, I mean, I love Dan Senor. What he does is fantastic. I listen to the podcast Haaretz and The Marker and those podcasts as well pretty regularly. So
great. Good tips. What's your favorite Jewish holiday?
As a kid, I loved Purim because I was all about costumes, but now they're all great. I have a kid. Every one of them is awesome, you know?
Yeah.
Like with Ari, it's about celebrating with him. So they're all great.
Last one. Can you please leave our audience with a call to action, something that you want people to be doing in this time?
It's tricky because if you're watching this podcast, you're already doing. Like the people that are watching this are self-selected to people that are interested in our topic. So to anybody that's watching this right now, I can safely say, keep doing what you're doing. Just keep doing what you're doing because you're already doing it and you're already doing great. So dig into your Jewish identity, understand what it means to be Jewish, celebrate it as an incredible identity that's similar to being like Black or LGBTQ plus community, whatever. It's an incredible identity that deserves to be celebrated, and it's one of the ancient ones out there. It's extraordinary. So just keep doing that.
You heard it here, folks.
Yeah.
Noa, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm glad we finally made it happen.
Me too. Thank you.
Thank you again to Jacob Fenton and Phil Castle for sponsoring today's episode with our mutual friend, Noa Tishby. If you're in LA and looking for amazing kosher dairy food, hit up Phil's restaurant, The Milky Way. You won't regret it. Folks, we've only got one episode left of the regular season featuring a very special guest for our finale. But don't worry, we'll be launching 2 new formats of the show over the summer, so be sure to stay tuned for that. We're also going to be putting out an audience feedback survey, so if you want to weigh in, make sure you're subscribed to my newsletter, which you can do at beingjewishpodcast.com, and be sure to follow the show on Instagram at beingjewishpodcast. That's it for me. I'll see y'all back here for the next Sababa episode of Being Jewish with me, Jonah Platt. Can I use sababa as an adjective like that?
Sure.
Great.